Welcome. I'm Glen Anderson with the Olympia Fellowship of Reconciliation. This TV series explores a variety of issues that relate to peace, social justice, and nonviolent social change. This month's program examines military recruiting. We'll address some serious problems that the public is largely unaware of. We'll find out how some local people are working to solve those problems. I'm happy to welcome three guests who are working to solve the problems. Matt Clark is an 11th grade student at Capitol High School. This summer he went to the counter-recruitment camp called Not Your Soldier in Goldendale, Washington, and he works with the counter-recruitment group Know All You Can Know. Welcome, Matt. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
George Hartwell knows about young people who are at risk. He recently retired from working as a social worker for Children's Protective Services. He is an associate member of Veterans for Peace and has actively worked for peace since the 1960s, and he's active with counter-recruitment efforts as well. George, good to have you here.
Thank you.
And Molly Gibbs is the program coordinator for Know All You Can Know. She's been working especially hard on this issue and recently went to Washington, D.C. to work on it further. So Molly, good to have you here.
Thank you, Glenn.
So welcome to all three of you. Let's lay a little bit of a foundation to look at how recruitment is different nowadays than how it was in recent decades. What differences come to mind for any of you?
Well, certainly the military is a very different creature now than it was then. If you're thinking about the Vietnam period, the military, the size of the military was 2 or 3 times what it is today, and it was, of course, there was a draft occurring at that time, and so We're not faced with a draft currently, although there are some efforts by the military to prevent service members who will have completed their tour from leaving service, and that's referred to as stop loss, which is a kind of backdoor draft. But certainly there are a number of major differences between the military situation now and then.
With the so-called all-volunteer Army, there's not only that stop loss backdoor draft that you mentioned, there's also what's been referred to as poverty draft. And Matt, when we were talking on the phone, you mentioned that as an aspect of the so-called all-volunteer Army.
Yeah, the poverty draft has to do with targeting low-income families and low-income neighborhoods. They target those areas and try to let them know that the military is an option or your only way of getting out of a lower-income place. If you can't pay for college, the military tells you they'll pay for your college. Military tells you that you'll get training for a job afterwards after you complete your time. And so that's a draft. And then for a lot of people in poverty is what they're targeting right now.
Mm-hmm. The military is having a hard time meeting quotas these days. It's been in the news, and people may be able to intuitively guess what the reasons are. What would you say are the reasons why they aren't meeting their quota?
Well, I would say quickly, just in 2 words, lies, military lies. The recruiters just are omitting some really critical information when they solicit they try to get the students to enlist. And in doing that, they're selling something that I think is based on our culture's acceptance of violence. I think we are numb to what war is really about. Mm-hmm. And maybe we may get into that a bit later in the show.
Yeah, we will. So there's some confusion, some reluctance to believe this stuff. And when you said two words, I thought you were going to say Iraq War. And
well, yeah.
It seems like people are concerned.
Certainly people are waking up to the fact that the Iraq, that we got into this war under false pretenses, and it's taken the public time, but I certainly see in the last few months an awakening in the public to the fact that this war is not a just war.
Yeah. What do you think young people and their parents know about military recruiters? What's your sense of how well young people and their parents understand the recruitment scene?
I don't think parents or students understand the recruitment scene very well. I don't think parents understand that the recruiters are coming to schools and talking to the coaches of the children attending the high school. And talking to them about great options and getting the school to endorse the military or something by having them there all the time, or having them at homecoming, or the walk with the king, or the lake fair, or whatever, to walk with the king. Excuse me. And I don't think parents know either that the military is engaging the students, trying to get them to talk about things that have to do with the military by engaging with them at when they set up their table, and trying to get them to go pizza after the words and stuff like that.
Well, I think Matt's right on target with some of the activities that got my attention were very much along those lines, hearing that the recruiters could take students off campus and take them to a military site or take them out for pizza, or then hearing that recruiters are dating young women in high schools. A whole lot of issues have surfaced that do include sexual abuse, and some, before the May stand down, they called it, when things got so intense, the pressure on the recruiters is terrific. They have quotas to make, and that in turn promotes a behavior that's inappropriate. So ultimately, I guess, was it in May they had the
Yeah.
stand down?
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, where they're supposed to do like a day of retraining.
It was-
But it shows how extreme the abuses have gotten.
In
That's right.
fact, in 2004, there had been over 1,100 complaints of improprieties by military recruiters, and the Army actually did their own investigation and substantiated over 300, I think 320 cases were substantiated where they had actually violated their own rules, which then resulted in this stand down and a kind of re-education process that supposedly took place.
Well, they have a $4 billion budget for recruiting advertising. It's
Well, as I understand, it's I think $4 billion for advertising,
advertising alone.
and that includes the Pentagon has quite a contract with Hollywood, so a lot of the the high-tech military stuff you see in movies is actually produced by the Pentagon. So there's some very interesting things that are being done with that budget.
I've gotten calls at home from parents who've been really upset when the recruiters keep badgering their kids, because I'm a source of information and help on this as well. And every now and then over the years, I've gotten calls from some parent who says they're at their wits' end because the recruiters are badgering their kids by phone repeatedly, even when the kid says don't call again. The recruiters are back on there at it again. I know there have been some cases of what's referred to as recruiter malpractice, where they've told kids to not disclose some health problem or not disclose a legal problem if they've had some scrapes with the law or something.
Or a drug problem.
Drug problems.
As like in the news, there was, I think it was back in 2004, or maybe it was this past year, where there was a student, I don't remember exactly what high school he was going to, but he talked to military recruiters about, he said he'd done drugs the past day, and he still wanted to be a part of the military. He still wanted to sign up, and they told him where he could go and what he could do, so he could still pass the drug test.
So some kind of a way to
Get around it.
fool
Yeah.
the testing process.
Yeah.
They, I think Molly, you mentioned they do coaching, the sports things, and
Yeah.
I've read that they sometimes will go and volunteer to be assistant coaches for high school football or basketball teams, but not for volleyball because that seems effeminate, but for football and basketball, the macho sports.
You had asked about one of the local stories at a North Thurston Elementary School. One of the teachers talked with us about just being troubled by a National Guard young man was hired to run a drug program in her classroom. So he came into the classroom, and this was 6th grade kids. And he introduced himself as Sergeant Joe, and he wore camouflage, and then, was saying, "I'm with the National Guard," and she was very uncomfortable with, what we have now is this haziness, a lack of boundaries, which I would emphasize as something, as a parent, I'm certainly concerned about. I mean, Donald Rumsfeld said it well. The purpose of the military is to train people to kill. It's not to educate them.
There was a thing in the Olympian just before we taped this program in mid-October about using iPod stuff.
There was recently on, I think it was October 12th, Olympian, on the front page at the bottom of it, that I believe iTunes or Apple has made a contract with the military or National Guard, that if you give contact information, if you listen to their speech about the military, and if you give contact information, you'll get a certificate for 3 free downloads from iTunes. And so they're using this, because so many teenagers nowadays and before listen to music, and a lot of people like music a lot, and it's only you're not even signing up for the military, so a lot of people will probably think, well, I'm just giving my contact information to them, and it's 3 free songs. You can't beat that. And so that's a thing. But then once you get your contact information, you'll be repeatedly contacted, even if you say you don't want any contact still. So.
Yeah. with this huge budget they have for advertising and all these sneaky ways they have of ingratiating themselves with you, it seems like young people need to have ways to protect themselves, and especially when they get close to the signing a recruitment contract. You know, it's like anybody who's going to sign a contract, you need consumer protection information. How do you know what the fine print says? How do you protect yourself? And some of it has to do with the promises that the recruiters are making. What could you tell us about the promises that recruiters often make?
Well, we know that they're promising large financial rewards for signing up. We're hearing reports of sums of money between $15,000 and $20,000 for an initial sign up for active duty, or even for reserve enlistment. In some cases, re-enlistments they're being offered $30,000 and upwards from there, depending on specific niches that the military is trying to fill and having difficulty with. So we're aware that financial incentives are being offered to kids, and frequently the military doesn't follow up on their promises. We're aware of cases, not here locally, but back east, where kids were offered money to cover college tuition expenses. And then that money, once they got the kid to sign on the dotted line, the money was not forthcoming.
Yeah, I've done some reading on that stuff about the college money. I know you're well informed about this. The dollar amounts that they advertise are deceptive. Molly, can you tell us how that works?
What I understand is that once you sign the contract, if you read the fine print on an enlistment contract, it says that any promise made to you by a recruiter is null and void when you sign it. So whatever's done in terms of that negotiation carries no legal weight whatsoever. So what happens, I think, and I'm sure you've all read about this, very few soldiers actually receive a benefit like that.
The educational money.
For one thing, it's often tied to you have to accept the worst position available, which is a frontline job usually. So the promise only holds true if you follow through several hoops to get there.
And the bigger dollar amounts are where you have to put your own money into it, and that's there's some special fund.
For education.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I've got the name of the fund in here, but there's something that's a special thing, and you put your own money into it, and if for some reason you don't get the benefit, you don't get your money back. It's non-refundable, and it comes out of your scarce earnings. And from what I've read from several sources, 2/3 of the people never get any educational money out of the military, and only a small percentage end up with a 4-year degree. So
it's 30% or less, I think that's correct.
It's kind of a ripoff.
There's a very, excuse me, there was a really useful article that appeared in The Nation just recently. It's a September 12 this year issue, in which some of these abuses are spelled out in detail, and the names of families are brought up. So if anyone is interested in gathering more information, getting specifics about some of these deceptive measures that the military has taken, they might want to look this magazine up.
They're in the back. The back issues are in libraries, and they're also online.
Yes.
So you can go to the Nation's website and see them. Yeah, Matt?
Another thing with the signing bonus is that so even if they do fall through with the signing bonuses, like maybe giving you a couple $1,000s, as of now that's been like even a bad thing when it gets to like boot camp or recruitment, because it's a bad morale thing also, because they'll get there and people will be like, so they'll be like talking, and someone will be like, well, I got $5,000 to sign up with the Army, and someone will be like, I didn't money, what are you talking about? And it makes a big morale thing also as well. And so yeah, a
lot of times they'll promise, oh yeah, you can go to computer school, but once you sign up, again, the contract, the the contract is always ruled in favor of, whenever it goes to court, in favor of the military. And the kid may say, well, but I was promised computer school. And all the military has to do is say, our national security needs changed. Computer school is full. We need you in the infantry.
That's
and
right.
you have absolutely no recourse whatsoever. You can't
That's
quit.
right. That's correct.
You know, so it's amazing.
I think there are other issues too as well. When you think back to how things have changed since Vietnam era, outsourcing is huge now. So this promise of transferable skills is just ridiculous, because the skills that you're taught in the military apply only to the military. A good example was the man who described he was involved in driving truck long distances in the military. When he came back here, he had to spend several $1,000s to get a truck driving certificate here. In so many ways, it's very limited in terms of transferability.
Yeah.
So every young person should know that.
Let's see, we had some other, there was a report that came out, people looked at this transferability of jobs, and I've got some figures here. Some folks at a university in Ohio found that, let's see, that's not the one I was looking for. There it is. It was, I missed it. I'll have to look for it again. There have been studies showing that a very small number of people find transferable jobs. I thought I had that right here, and it's not. So
There's another thing. A lot of people who come out of the military, because they're not they're taught to be like in the military. I haven't been in the military, so I can't speak from personal experience because I'm only in high school. But there's been stories of people who, like in the military, a lot of violence and a lot of like tough job kind of thing, like you're a tough man and stuff. And a lot of people who get back from the military are the people who, like, if you're not one of the truck drivers or something, when you get back, you like the jobs that you can apply your skills to. If you're like an infantry, like front line, there's only like the basic jobs are like you can be like security guard, you can be or like police, and then there's a lot of violence involved, and it transfers violence back into the community a lot from back.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. There've been 3 murders, I think, Fort Lewis, right in this area, where it points to the post-traumatic stress,
Right.
and I think it makes me think about Chris Hedges tonight. As he's speaking, he so articulately states that we're not prepared for the transfer of violence back home. Basically it's a plane flight, and you're just not able to leave behind what you've seen and experienced.
And the recruiters don't disclose that. They don't say, by the way, this job may give you psychiatric disabilities
For the rest of
your life.
And with the funding, they're raising funding like to recruit people, and for military expenses, but they're lowering and cutting funding to help with like people who come back from the war. And so they're like, even if they did tell you, which would be nice, about post stress disorder, traumatic stress disorder, there's not even like enough funding nowadays for them to really even help people with that. There's like barely enough funding, and some they don't even like, they write it off as something else, so they don't have to deal with it.
Right. Or else you're on a very long waiting list.
Yeah, very, very.
I found the figure from Ohio, the study they found, some researchers found that only 12% of male veterans and 6% of female veterans that in the survey made any use of the skills they learned in the military in their civilian jobs. And so the conclusion was, the evidence on rates of return to training and the probability of finding a job in one's chosen occupation strongly suggests that, all else being equal, young people should look to sources of training other than the military if they wish to optimize their careers. And so that was from one of the very good studies done by some people at a university in Ohio.
Right, and Glenn, I would just like to mention that you're absolutely right that the recruiters aren't going to tell prospective recruits what may happen to them in terms of physical and psychological harm. And if you want the truth, you need to go and talk to a vet who will tell you that if you've been involved in any combat experience, no one comes home unscathed in those situations. Everyone suffers in some way. But the military recruiters aren't going to tell you that.
And they also won't say that veterans have a lower rate of finding jobs. They have a higher rate of unemployment, higher rate of homelessness.
Homelessness, suicide.
The VA estimates that a third of the people who are homeless in this country are veterans.
That's right.
So there's some stuff going on that people aren't being told about. And of course, you have to give up your civil rights. You have a job that you can't quit. There's just a lot of things going on. So part of what's going on around the country is an increase in people wanting to make sure that young people hear all sides before they make that decision. And so the issue of equal access comes up.
Equal access or equal opportunity.
Okay.
Is another term for it.
Okay. And so since recruiters have a lot of time, a lot of access to the schools and a lot of time to spend with schools and with students, and people who can come at this from a consumer protection standpoint or a different perspective are excluded often. The getting access is an important thing. And George, you have a story from when you were much younger in Bellingham.
That's
This is
right.
what, around 1969 or thereabouts?
It's a long time ago. Yeah, November of 1969. I was with 7 other students who were all enrolled at Western Washington State College. We knew that the military was recruiting at one of the local high schools. We went to the high school administration and asked for permission to come and present the other side, to give draft resistance conscientious objector information to students. We were denied that ability, and so we contacted the ACLU, and it was sort of orchestrated that we would come back to the school, and without interfering with anyone's rights, without blocking the school entrance or exit, we would hand out literature, which we did, and we were arrested. And making the long story short, eventually we were charged with vagrancy, and that case eventually went to, after several appeals where the conviction was upheld, and the lower court convictions were upheld, and eventually it went to the U.S. Supreme Court, which vacated the decision, sent it back to Washington, said you'd made a poor decision, and that we were actually exercising some First Amendment rights there. And it's an important issue for students now to understand that when they walk into the classroom, they don't give up their right, not only to information, but to organize within the school and to talk to each other and to share information, and to be fully aware of the choice that that's being laid in front of them.
Yeah.
Well, I bring that forward to what we're all about, trying to really support students who are getting clubs going in the schools. I know, Matt, we've talked a bit about the different schools are kind of different environments, and so it would be nice to hear a little bit about what you're doing with regard to the Veterans Day event.
The Veterans Day, well, we came up with an idea for a Capitol High School Veterans Day Assembly, and I came up with the idea of having someone from the foreign veterans of foreign wars come, and someone from Veterans for Peace come, and staging like a debate or so between the two. And I thought this would be a great idea because last year it was supposed to be just like a Veterans Day assembly, honoring past troops, and it turned into the guy is I've served my time, not exact quote, I don't remember it exactly, but I've served my time, now you should go out and serve your country and do your time for our country kind of thing, and becoming pro-war and telling everyone that they should go out there and do the same at a school assembly. And I thought this was pretty wrong for them to be allowing this person to do that. So I thought it'd be good if they brought about a debate so you could have both sides come there. I brought this idea up with the administration at Capitol High School, and they said that they're going to try to lean away from having a debate because they don't want to bring up political issues at an assembly like that, because it's supposed to be honoring the veterans, and they don't want it to turn into a giant like debate between two people. But they told me that they don't want to have a debate. But I asked them if they could consider having two speakers then, like having someone from Veterans for Foreign War and having someone from Veterans for Peace talk about their experience, so it's not just a one-sided thing. And and I doubt it would turn into a debate, but then it would be more of like you'd hear both sides, and it wouldn't be just like one plain view coming at you.
I have a brother who's a Vietnam veteran. He was drafted and sent to Vietnam, and later became a teacher. And one year when they had to do, his school that he was teaching at had to do a Veterans Day thing, it became his turn to organize it, and he made sure that the other viewpoints were represented. Yeah. And he said that that it's one thing to have a day that honors veterans, but it's an abuse of it to have it be honoring war.
Yeah.
He says the analogy that he thought of would be like if you had a day to celebrate people in the healthcare professions, you wouldn't say, and hooray for disease.
Yeah.
You know, you'd support the people who are in the healthcare professions,
Yeah.
but without supporting the disease. I want to look at one of the things I know you've been working on a lot, the opting out thing. People have discovered that there's that specific requirement in that so-called No Child Left Behind law that Bush and the Republicans pushed through Congress to deal with educational issues. And the provision, tell us about, Molly, if you can tell us about this.
Become the No Child Left Unrecruited law.
That's right.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, Section 9528 does require schools to release specific information to recruiters each year. And I've heard different reports beginning in 9th grade or 10th grade, but I'm aware that it usually starts in 10th grade in this state. And when that happens, the schools are under the threat of losing funding if they don't provide the information. The information that's required would be the student's name, address, phone number. So what we've been doing for the last 2 months or so is we've now visited with each of our local school districts and had a very rich discussion with each one. I think what we found is there's just a wide variety of ways schools respond to this, and even within one district. So what we're doing is trying to support getting answers to specific questions, and we've kind of grouped them, Glenn, into about 5 or 6 categories. But we look at what information's being released and to whom. Tumwater, I think, has taken a real lead in terms of what they do is they have one recruiter. One recruiter gets the data. And so most of the districts use a Skyward database, and we ask about, you know, how they get the information, who enters it, and basically there's quite a bit of variation in terms of what the deadline is. When does the information have to be in? And that's been confusing, but I'll explain. I think I now understand why it really may be moot point in terms of when that information.
And we'll cover that later in a few
Yeah.
minutes. But I want to just nail down this concept that the schools are required
Yes.
by federal law to give private information
That's right.
for contacting the students to the federal government for the purpose of recruiting them.
Yes.
Unless the student or his family opt
Would
out,
opt
and
out.
they have
The,
to take that action.
Right.
The schools are also required by law to tell the students and the parents that there is an option to opt out. That they're also told that they're required by law that they have to tell the students or parents that there's an option for them not to have this information given to the military.
And what are you finding out? How well are the schools complying with that?
Not-
I think they seem to be trying to get the information out. I think our concern has been that that the information may be overlooked or not seen by the parent, or not. It comes home in a registration packet, and they may never actually see the information, not be aware that they have the right.
And you had an experience, or there's something you told me on the phone.
There's like a daily bulletin that's read every day, And since there's like the form was in the second to last page, which was page 40 or 42, I believe, of the Students' Rights and Responsibility Handbook for the Olympia School District. And I asked a school, we got the papers on Thursday in September, and I was told that they were due the next Monday. And the teachers, I believe the teachers a lot of teachers didn't know about the opt-out form and how it was used. And so it was due the next Monday, and I thought that was ridiculous considering they just got passed out. They'll go home to parents that weekend. The parents will barely even get a chance to look at them and decide whether they want to opt out or not. And but then the date got extended until like mid-October. They didn't give us a definite date. They said get them in as soon as possible because they don't know when the military is going to come and ask in mid-October. They don't have a definite date when the military is going to come and ask, or they wouldn't give out a definite date. So they said get it in as soon as possible so that the information could be applied into their database so that the military would not get your information. But through this, I tried to help students be aware of this by making a thing on the Daily Bulletin, which is read every day for class. But the problem with the Daily Bulletin is not many people pay attention to it, or students, because it's like in the beginning of second period, and it's kind of hard to hear some classes. Some classes there's like talking. A lot of students don't pay attention to it anymore because it really normally has useless information on it. Nothing against our school announcements, but and then or it's poorly represented, like the information. That's also on the website, so that on the school website you can access the daily thing, but it's hard to get the information out to students for them to be able to understand.
So part of what you're trying to do with your group Know All You Can Know is to make sure that information is out there, it's clear, and you're working with the deadlines.
We've done a number of things. What we're able to do now with the schools, we've offered to help with printing the form on bright colored paper, attach it to the form that has your emergency contact information. That's a real important form.
That way it'll get noticed.
Yeah. And then we'll work so that what we're hearing from all the districts is a promise of next year. They really want to work with us, support what we're trying to do. They understand that they need to do a better job of getting it out. So in Olympia, it will be on their district website. The schools will start to post the forms on the website.
The opt-out form is now on the Capitol High School website. They put it up, I believe, in mid-September, end of September. They added the opt-out form to the school website. It was under the information.
Now, the school systems and local government here in this area are pretty savvy compared to the ones elsewhere in the country. A lot of the other places in the country don't have the quality that we have. They don't have attentive folks like you all working on these things. And so I can imagine that there are millions of kids around the country whose rights and whose privacy are being violated.
What I would say at this point about that is, since that stand down day last spring, my email has quadrupled, and there are people all over the country doing this work. I just met with several when I was in D.C. So there are folks on the East Coast, West Coast, Phoenix, Austin, probably Minneapolis, Chicago. There are people doing this all over the country.
And it's like so many other issues that we're concerned about. It's not reaching the mainstream press, so most of us aren't hearing about it unless you've got your eye on them.
But the people who are connected know. But I'm concerned about all the people who aren't connected, who don't have good peace activists in their towns.
Right.
And there are a lot of towns.
Like smaller communities or rural cities. Yeah. A lot of as she listed, a lot of the cities she's listed were like big cities and big names. And so even in Washington, on the west side of Washington, there's probably cities I know people that go to Aberdeen and Hoquiam, and they probably Aberdeen and Hoquiam High School in Aberdeen and Hoquiam, and they probably don't have the same kind of people in the community trying to work on this. So there's a lot of they might not even have opt-out forms at their school. Or
Yeah.
There is one. I'm being funny, but
There's a national solution that was put forth by Congressman Mike Honda from California. It's House Resolution 551. Is that right? Tell us what that is, because that sounds like a really good solution.
well, his bill is to turn opt-out into opt-in. So the premise there is informed consent, and that's what our organization is all about. This is our purpose. We want people to know what's going on. While that's a fine idea, there's been something else going on, Glenn, that takes us into another arena. And one of our local school board members and school administrator asked me very candidly, well, what's the point of going through with opt-out if the government already has our data? And what they're referring to is what we call the JAMMERS database.
Yeah, the Joint Advertising and Market Research Study.
So what happened for me, my son last May received a solicitation from the Army in the mail, and we had opted out. So I wondered how we had received this thing if I had already opted out, or he had. And then I found very quickly, within weeks, I had a bunch of emails about this issue. JAMMERS, the database is created by a private company called BNow. It has 30 million entries, and it covers your ethnicity, social security number, your name, address, phone number, grade point average, the subjects you've studied.
the clubs you belong to. It actually can get, the JAMMERS can get any information you write down or fill out. So if you can get your email address, like if you take the PSAT or the SAT, they're getting information from organizations, they're buying information, or information is given from informations like the SAT or the ACT or the PSAT, big tests like that. They can get information from there. Like we believe they're getting your like GPA from that, or like if you have car insurance as a teenager, there's like the thing, if you have like a 3.0, you get cheaper car insurance. So it's a good thing to give your grade point average out, so you can work to get like the cheaper car insurance, and then they're using that to send it to the military. And then like your ethnicity, they can get your address by like, if you felt like a Newsweek thing, like I want Newsweek to be sent to my house, they can get the information from Newsweek, and it's like all this information they're able to get.
And now you said that it's being compiled by a private company for the Pentagon.
Yes.
And tell us why that is. Why is it privatized?
Well, FERPA, okay, family, what does FERPA stand for?
Oh, I've forgotten.
Something privacy.
Right to Privacy Act.
Federal Right
Family,
Okay.
something, Right to
Yeah,
Privacy
yeah.
Act. If you look that up, what it does is it reassures, it states in that law that you have a right to privacy with regard to your personal information. Now, and then it lists some exceptions. So the exceptions would be legal if you get in trouble with the law. There's certain times when a school is required to release information, and they're very specific. It has to be within those
Right.
strict guidelines. And for years, that's been the law. Now, though, this database, what the Pentagon did was to get around FERPA. They contracted with a private company. This company is not covered by the Privacy Act. They don't have this Privacy Act seal on their website. And this resulted in EPIC released.
Who's EPIC is an organization?
Yes, they're connected actually with the Department of Defense. But they keep databases. That's what EPIC
Okay.
manages, databases throughout our nation. And they and 8 other agencies reviewed this database, and they released a memorandum to the Department of Defense strongly recommending that they cease the database because it's illegal. So that happened just about immediately following Senators Corzine and Clinton, Hillary Clinton and Maria Cantwell, some others, signed a letter to Donald Rumsfeld requesting
The
that
Secretary of Defense.
that we stop. They wanted him to stop the database for citing the same reasons, violation of privacy.
Yeah.
So what's true and what we all should know is the database was formed in 2003. It wasn't listed with the Federal Register until May of 2005.
And that's illegal also.
Yes. So
So-
there's just one after
So
another.
here's the Pentagon has created this illegal database with massive amounts of information on young people.
From the ages of 16, I believe, to 25.
Okay.
They'll gather your information all the way up until
Yeah.
you're 25.
Okay, but as young as 16,
Yeah.
so all this confidential
Minor.
private information, they've created this illegal database, and not only is it illegal because it violates the privacy law, but it's also illegal because they didn't disclose it in the Federal Register, which is what they should have done 2 years ago when they actually created it.
So what happened, I guess I need to be quiet for here, but I think in DC what I realized that was frustrating, a group of us came together and decided that we would try to contact several organizations that are effective lobbyists, counter-recruitment organizations, and try to get our Congress and senators to stop funding the database. But we missed the appropriations bill. It passed last week, so we didn't have enough time to get that accomplished. And we need to work harder and smarter because I believe strongly that we need to stop funding the war itself.
Yeah, and certainly illegal databases that invade the privacy of young people.
Yeah.
What would you like the viewers to do about that, about the Jammers database? Or about the opt-out provision? Any of you?
Well, let me say this, that in addition to the concern that we have that families, kids, parents be fully aware of their right and their right to opt out, we're making efforts with the schools to get our foot in the door as well, so that when military recruiters come to campus for Career Day, for example, that we also have some opportunity, not necessarily to come in and confront the military or have a debate, but to be present, to come into the school and provide to students information about what that means to sign on the dotted line and give your life to the military for 4 or 8 years. And we're finding that the schools are generally receptive to that idea. And we think that's an important way for students to become fully aware and to make an informed decision about their lives.
I think I'm also going to loop back to something Matt said earlier that I think is powerful. It's really important to be thinking about the messages that the military recruiters give. There's some false assumptions or beliefs around what it means. Is it honorable to serve your country when the war is illegal, when it causes far more harm and destruction than it solves? War has never solved a major conflict. The only way conflicts have ever been resolved is through negotiation, understanding. So I think some of the things that you touched upon in terms of, what is this noble cause? I mean, there's some real serious questions to be asking. And what kind of life do we want to have? We're going to have a very tough time ahead when our young people are assuming a debt that I can't even fathom. And there are different ways that we could be living and different priorities that we could assume. And our values have somehow been lost in the whole war effort. So all we want with regard to this topic, I think, is for people to consider their own rights and what they want to do. They can opt out. Opting out is important simply because you're taking care of yourself. You're advocating for your rights and upholding your own rights. Whether or not it actually keeps the recruiters from bothering you, I can't promise that. But the same thing is true with the Jammers database, and that's more effort. Then we now have to go and look up the website, find the address, and send another letter. But I think it's important to do it.
Well, it's important for the public to know what's going on, and that what the military is doing is actually illegal under federal law, and they'll get away with it unless we stop them, because nobody in the federal government seems interested in stopping them. And that's very dangerous for a democracy, very dangerous for a free society.
Absolutely.
To have have the military, have the most powerful military in the world out of control like that. So I want to mention one other way that the recruiters get a hook in that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's the ASVAB test. I want to just mention this briefly because we're running a bit late. The Armed Forces Vocational Aptitude Battery is a test that's given widely in high schools around the country, and it has no educational value whatsoever. There's no value for the students, no value for the schools, no value for civilian career counseling. All it does is generate data for the military recruiters about what kind of military job you might get if they were to succeed in recruiting you. That's why they call it the Armed Forces Vocational Aptitude Battery. And also it provides data for the recruiters, because when you sign up, then that's another source of your private, name, address, and phone, and so forth that they can use to hustle you for. And the contact information from the ASVAB tests are given to recruiters even if a person has opted out under the opt-out provision that we talked about a few minutes ago. So they've got their hooks in just everywhere, and that ASVAB test is given very widely around the country, even though it has no value whatsoever except for the military, and it's using up school time. So
we were going to mention, Matt, about Running Start as well.
Oh yeah, if at least in the Seattle School District, there's around 600 people enrolled in Running Start, which is a program which allows you to attend high school and go to the community college and get your college classes paid for through the school. But students who have, at least this is for Seattle, have opted out at their high school, the information has not been acknowledged at the college, and so the recruiters are still able to get the kids' information about who came from high schools to the college, or the kids at the college is information about the students there, and they're still able to access the information even though the students sign an opt-out form at the high school, because they're going through a college instead of the high school format.
And those are the kids that the military particularly targets to go after, because they recognize that those are the kids who are most vulnerable for dropping out of college. They run out of money. They come from families that can't pay the full bill for their education. So the military's trolling by those schools and looking for those kids who are dropping out.
We have a few minutes left. I just want to see if there are a couple of things that we can talk about that we haven't touched on yet, including what some of the things that folks are doing about this. There's you and I talked on the phone about this National Youth and Student Peace Coalition effort on November 17, Not Your Soldier. Yeah. Tell us some about that.
I believe if you go to the Not Your Soldier website, which I believe is notyoursoldier.com or .org, I'm not positive exactly what
we'll find it. We'll make it available.
And they're holding like an event night, or it's November 17th, correct?
Correct. Thursday, November 17th.
Thursday, November 17th, and they're trying to get students or parents or teachers or somebody to organize like a rally to declare like this is a recruiter-free zone, or to hold like a showing of a movie or something to get people to come so they can share their ideas and get together about it. And that's the thing coming up, or a walkout at your school, or whatever you can do to get people to come together so they can discuss their feelings on this.
Yeah, we do have that information posted on the Olympia Fellowship of Reconciliation's website in the announcements section. And the website for that particular effort is the abbreviation of the group's name. It's www.nyspc.net. But it's that Not Your Soldier thing. Tell us just a bit more about the Know All You Can Know. That's the group that you're working with. What are you trying to do, kind of briefly, because we're running
Yeah, we're
late.
doing a lot of different things. We're looking for volunteers. We have a need for, George and I have been talking about reviewing the materials that we use. We have 4 large notebooks of materials. We're developing a program in collaboration with Community Youth Services. I'm believing that that will pan out, but we have some plans to start to serve low-income minority youth, and I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
We're also applying for a grant. We'll have during winter break, we'll have a camp here in Olympia, and students from Pierce County, Mason County will join us, and we'll do a training here for students so that they can do their own organizing.
That's great. Okay, I appreciate all that stuff. We'll be posting there are a lot of organizations nationwide that are working on counter-recruitment, and we will be posting these on the website for the Olympia Fellowship of Reconciliation, which is www.olyfor.org, and people will be able to go there and connect with these and many more activities. I wonder if we can wrap up with just some closing thoughts from each of you, just a brief thing from each person.
Before I say more, do we want to make note that if somebody has a question that they can't reach you or you don't have the answer to, they can certainly contact Molly.
Absolutely.
And you want to give out your number?
Sure, yeah. You can reach me at mgibbs, Gibbs, @oliwa.net. And you can also reach me at 412-1519.
That's good.
And I'll try to get back to you within 2 days.
Okay, we're actually right out of time, so I want to thank all of you, Matt and George and Molly. I want to thank all the folks who've been watching. For information about the kind of recruitment, referrals to the activities and organizations we've talked about, or any other information about peace and social justice and nonviolence, you can contact the Olympia Fellowship of Reconciliation at 491-9093. We're all one human family, and we all share this one planet. We can make the world a better place, but we all have to work at it. And the world needs just exactly what you have to offer. Thanks for doing as much as you can. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.